All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, sorry, we're doing this by the tabulator again. Sorry, apologize, guys. It is a council meeting. That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Maracas. After much consideration, I believe I need to declare conflict due to my employment in the retail pharmacy industry. I've struggled with this decision as the issue is an important one for our community, but I believe it can be argued that I have a direct and/or indirect pecuniary interest in this matter. Therefore, to preserve the integrity of Council's decision-making process, I've decided to err on the side of caution and declare a conflict. I do so having complete confidence in my colleagues and their ability to deal with this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Mr. Clerk, would you have anything to add to that? Or... Good. Okay, we are going to enter into the public consultation portion of this meeting. Normally, delegations, there are questions. Councillors, I'm going to remind you for this one, we're going to treat it as a public planning meeting. There will be no questions from councillors. The delegations will each have 3 minutes, and I'll remind you when you come up, if you can state your name, your address, and at 1 minute time left, you will hear a chime. And then when you hear the second chime, your time will be over. We are going to hold everyone to a strict 3 minutes because we do have quite a few residents coming up to speak. And I just want to remind everyone that the public consultation speakers list will be limited to Aurora residents. So with that being said, Mr. Clerk, I'll invite our first delegation, and I see the list is in front of us. So Elena, and I can't say the last name, Edgington. Oh, thank you. If you can come up, state your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes, as I stated.
Elena Edgington. I live at 3 Styles Avenue in Aurora. Good evening, Council and people of Aurora. My name is Elena, and I've lived in Aurora for 5 years. I'm a wife and mother to 3 amazing children and a graduate of Cannabis Training University. I'm also a student in the University of Guelph's horticulture program. I've attended multiple colleges, both here and abroad, with my focus being medical cannabis. I also live with thyroid nodules, IBS, PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, and fibromyalgia, with all ailments but the nodules affecting me since childhood. After struggling for years with pharmaceuticals and their side effects, I became an exceptionally pleased medical cannabis recipient as of 6 months ago. My son, who also lives with Tourette's, autism, and ADHD, is a recipient as well. We are here tonight to discuss whether or not our humble yet progressive town of Aurora should opt in or out of allowing retail cannabis stores. As I'm sure you have all guessed by now, I should say we should opt in, and here's why. Marijuana is medicine, and the government has known this. Back from 1998, U.S. patent number 6630507B1, cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. Cannabinoids have been found to have antioxidant properties, and this newfound property makes cannabinoids useful in the treatment of age-related, inflammatory, and autoimmune diseases. The cannabinoids are found to act as neuroprotectants, for example, in limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults such as stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, HIV, and dementia. Marijuana is medicine. We are all aware of the dangers of opioid addiction and its potential to destroy lives. I have witnessed it firsthand. I've lost loved ones to them. According to Government Canada, we are in the middle of an opioid crisis. Every day, 11 Canadians out of 100,000 lose their lives due to pharmaceuticals, and pharmacies are a dime a dozen. Yet I have never watched anyone struggle with a marijuana addiction. I've never witnessed anyone die, lose their family or their home due to cannabis, but pharmacies are constructed without second thought, and cannabis retail outlets are met with disdain and question. But did you know, with the recent legalization of medical cannabis, new findings have revealed that opioid use in Canada has already been decreased by 27%. Medical cannabis has many proven positive medical constituents. Alcohol and tobacco don't, but they're available all over the map. A quick Google search reveals that within an 8-kilometer radius of my home, less than 2 kilometers from here, there are 85 places of education, including public schools, dance studios, driving schools, learning centers, and daycare facilities. Within those 8 miles, there are 22 locations that sell alcohol, including but not limited to LCBO, beer store, cafes, and restaurants with multiple locations stating that they are child-friendly. Let's also not forget, alcohol is now sold in multiple grocery stores. If ease of access to our children is of concern, I believe I can put everyone's fears to rest, as I am certain there will never be a marijuana retail store listed as child-friendly or a grocery store that sells marijuana. But it would be a place where adults can go to have access to clean, lab-tested, government-approved medical cannabis, especially in a pinch.
Thank you, Elena. Next up, we have Emil Simon. Emil, if you could state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Emil Simon. I live at 9 Harriman Road in Aurora. I've been a resident in Aurora for 33 years, since 1986. I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to speak at the special council meeting. Congratulations again for all the new incumbent councillors elected and our new mayor. Before I begin, I'd like to disclose that I have no shares in cannabis companies and I don't smoke cannabis. So my point of view is simply based on what I strongly believe is in the best interest of the town of Aurora and the citizens of Aurora. Having been a resident for over 30 years, I've started several businesses in Aurora, and I truly have the town's best interests at heart. And I believe I'm representing a large number of citizens in the town of Aurora. So don't view me as one person, view me as like 1,000 people at least. I understand there's a small, non-majority vocal group of citizens who are against cannabis retail, and this group tends to affect the way councillors feel and vote. But there are many, many more people in our town who are the silent majority and in favor of cannabis. The town councillors and mayors have a simple choice, either to say yes or to say no to cannabis. The top 3 citizen concerns for not allowing cannabis stores are typically the impact on property values, the traffic, and crime and disruptive behavior. All 3 of these concerns are not concerns. For example, property values. Studies from Denver, Colorado, where several universities track property values, have shown that over a few-year period, as retail cannabis stores were established, property values located within 160 meters of these stores actually rose relative to other properties located further away. Cannabis stores positively affect property values. Traffic. Since only a small number of cannabis stores will be allowed, the negative traffic impact will be minimal and no different than having another LCBO store. Crime and disruptive behavior. There's a common and strong stigma related to cannabis that suggests a store would attract crime, but the data is more nuanced. Drawing from studies in California suggested no relationship whatsoever between the location of cannabis dispensaries and either violent or property crime. The same has been found by studies in Ohio. Since the government has already passed legislation legalizing cannabis, Aurora's decision is, will it host cannabis shops, and if so, why, and what are the upsides? There are plenty. First, the town will receive provincial funding estimated about $75,000 over 2 years to help with costs, including pot-related bylaw enforcement. Second, the Ontario government said that 50% of any revenue above $100 million annually will be divvied up between the opt-in communities. The town will thus receive millions of dollars. Third, the town will receive a share of the federal excise taxes collected from cannabis. Fourth, as the cannabis industry grows, Aurora will be viewed as a cannabis-friendly town for
Mr.
possible...
Simon, if I can ask you to wrap up, please.
Okay. I'll end up with saying, finally, the most important thing is jobs, jobs, and jobs. By saying no, Aurora creates no jobs. By saying yes, Aurora creates immediate and future jobs. I strongly encourage the town to say yes to the inevitable and growing cannabis industry and say yes to immediate and future millions in revenues.
Thank you, Mr. Simon.
Okay.
Next up, we have Richard Helbig. Did I say that right? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and councillors and fellow residents, my name is Richard Helbig. I live at 15 Hill Drive in Aurora. I'm a 50-year resident of the Aurora area with a bit of a hiatus in New York, but I'm back and I love it here.
Mr. Helbig, can I just get you to lift the mic up just a little bit for us? Thank you.
if someone were to tell me that by ingesting alcoholic drinks, it would put me into a false state of euphoria, I'd tell them to mind their own business. If someone were to tell me that by ingesting alcoholic drinks, I'd be a bad example to my children, I'd tell them to mind their own business. If someone told me that I might harm my own health by drinking alcohol, I'd tell them to mind their own business. If someone told me that by drinking alcohol it could lead to stronger substances, like tobacco, I'd tell them to mind their own business. If someone told me that my judgment would be impaired by drinking alcohol and driving, I'd tell them I don't drink and drive. And if someone told me they had decided to sell alcoholic beverages not in Aurora, and that if I had to drive to some other town to get a decent bottle of whiskey, I'd tell them to go to hell. Now, folks, we're not talking about the health aspects about marijuana here. We're not doctors and we're not sociologists. Marijuana use, that has been the law of this land, and a unanimous 70% of Canadians have said so for a long time. That train has left the station. So I'm saying we should be a part of that country that brings this sale out of the shadows. There is absolutely no argument for not having marijuana sales in Aurora. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Next up, we have Greg Simon. Mr. Simon, if you could say your name, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Greg Simon, and I live at 9 Harriman Road in Aurora. I lived and I've grown up in Aurora my whole life. I went to school at SB Pearson and Aurora High School. I'm also a medical cannabis user. I have been for the past few years. I'd say for me it's important just to have retail cannabis in Aurora, or at least be open to it. Just because even for someone like myself who is medical, who has had official approval to be a cannabis consumer for the past few years, there is still a noticeable stigma about the use of cannabis. For me personally, even it took until I guess the day it was officially legalized for me to kind of not feel, I don't know, as though I wasn't sort of, I guess you could say, a second or third class citizen in some people's eyes, just because it was seen as though I was almost doing something seedy, even though I was approved to do so. And I think for a lot of people, they can find different medical or different benefits from cannabis, and having a retail store would be sort of a symbol in a way of just that sort of public approval of the town, that that it's welcoming to the people who are users of cannabis recreationally or even just casually medically. I also just feel too it is a brand new industry, and it would be it's important, I think, for my city that I grew up in to be a part of it. And I think that's more or less what I kind of wanted to say. Aside from that, I just don't think people should have to go out of their way to get access to something. They should have to leave their town to kind of source something that's already been, legal and available at this point. And I think that's just sort of the stage we're at right now, and that's what I'd like to see for the city. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simon. Next up, we have Edmund Young. Mr. Young, if you could state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Edmund Young, 160 Concord Crescent. Sorry. Your worship, councillors, good evening, everybody. We have collected more than 1,600 signatures urging council to opt out. On economic benefits, the provincial funding will be restricted to public health, paramedics, bylaw enforcement and litigation, etc. The initial $26,000 is only 0.041% of Aurora operating budget. Not sure why the town report uses the York region figure. That is not relevant. On federal funding, I have done a spreadsheet. According to Statistics Canada, Ontario was 38.8% of Canada's total household. Using the same 0.176% Aurora share announced by Ontario, assuming 25% municipal opt-in rate, if the excise tax is below 100 million, we will get zero. If the excise tax is $150 million, Aurora will get $68,000. Assuming York Region is not getting funding for ease of calculation, Aurora expenditure for 2018 was $64 million. This $68,000 only equates to 0.1% of our total budget. But $150 million is very unlikely. Again, the federal government only expects excise tax to be around $100 million for the first 2 years, which means no excise money for us. Toronto will get 114 times our funding. Please do not use the term financial benefits easily. I used to teach business school and at the MBA level more than 20 years ago, but the math is very simple. Also, how is retail store going to eliminate black market when someone under 19 can't go in? Yes, it is legalized. You can buy online and enjoy it at home. The Ontario government has not provided municipalities the ability to control locations and a lot of other things. There's so many uncertainties in opting in at this point. Once we opt in, we are stuck with the unknown consequences and irreversibility. Let's be responsible and opt out at this point. Councillors, if citizens had make references to reports, we expect you to provide compelling and clear justification if you want to opt in. More than 1,600 of our constituents, of your constituents, have spoken, and we have voted opt out. I doubt if anyone would have done a more comprehensive personal poll. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Excuse me, everyone, just to remind you, we do have a certain decorum and procedures within our council chambers. If you can refrain from clapping or booing or, we're trying to do the business of the town, so we really appreciate if you could keep the clapping and hold that down. Thank you. Sorry, so it's, next up we have Tan Zhao, is that correct? If you can state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Tan Zhao, living in Fort Maryland. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to share my proposal of the private cannabis retail store in Aurora. First, last fall, we vote you for getting things done and serve us to do the due diligence and make good decisions for us. You are not elected to hand over our future to someone that remote, someone we don't know. At this point, it's unclear that how much influence the town can give the AGCO in terms of the proposed location and other restrictions under the bylaw. In saying opt-in, we are opening to any risk and uncertainty. We are giving up our final decision and letting the AGCO dictate whatever they want. Secondly, more than 25% of our population are aged 19 and under, according to last census. They are our future, and we definitely need to protect them. The restriction under of 150 meter setback from the school is certainly debatable because it's a walking distance easy for teenagers. By creating more accessible pot shop in Aurora, the black market will certainly looking into shifting their target into the illegal buyers by retaining their profit. As a result, it will create unnecessary issue and complication to our enforcement department. While the economic benefit is uncertain, opening the storefront pot shop will introduce extra enforcement costs and effort. Most importantly, it will put our young people in high risk and have negative impact to our young family. Finally, we should be united together and build a strong community with love and peace. This is the main driver to move our community to excellence. At this point, we don't feel the town has did the comprehensive consolidation. And we actually want the town to make sure we can go out to hear everyone's voice. Tonight, we have 100 people. In summary, we would like to see opt-in is a non-reversible option, and there are many uncertainty and risks associated with it. We should not rush in until we have more studied information. The best option is work with towns like Richmond Hill, King, Newmarket, Markham, and many others to choose opt-out. Send a strong message to the Queen's Park and Ottawa. They cannot sue their own stuff onto us. They have to clean up this mess before we can make a more informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate that the fact that everyone's pretty emotional on either side, so if we can just keep, as I mentioned, the clapping to a minimum. Thank you. Next we have David Wong. Is that correct? That's correct. Thank you.
David Wang. I live on 132 Conway Avenue. So good evening, fellow Aurora citizens and residents. I'm here to share some deep thought with you. First of all, what is cannabis? Cannabis is a drug, and that's a fact. Whether it's legal, illegal, recreational, or medicinal. Cannabis is also addictive, just like cigarette and alcohol. 1 in 6 cannabis users is addicted, especially those who started at a younger age. I learned that personally in a hard way. My son Kevin started smoking weeds at the age of 15. From an honor roll student, he went to a 6% average mark. He dropped out of cadet. He stopped playing badminton. He stopped playing piano. Luckily, life took him back to China for 7 long months, accompanied by his cat and his grandpa. He quit the habit. But still, it was a long and sad story for a 15-year-old young man. Canada, the United States, and Nigeria are the 3 biggest countries with the highest cannabis users in the world. The United States have a population of 300 million. Nigeria, 200 million. Us, 35 million. So you can see we're not only proudly Canadian, we're proudly pot-smoking Canadian. And I guess it makes sense the federal government legalize it. But what worries me is this. The Canadians' teenager usage of pot is among the highest in the world before last October's legalization at 28%. Compared to Colorado after the legalization at 21%, and Netherlands, as we know it, after years of tolerance, only at 17%. A lot of you would say that, well, that's the reason we legalize it. And so our young people will stop using it. And let's face it, if you sing those bored out cardboard in a gas station and also those horrific cancer pictures on your smoke packaging, not going to stop people from smoking, do you believe a pot-supporting federal government and a whole bunch of local pot shops will actually decrease our teenage usage? The answer is no. It won't happen. All right? And with that in mind, I was actually saying this, and it's to be quite hypocritical as adults we are, you know, and we're hypocrites. You know, we tell our children, didn't we tell them to just say no to drugs? We didn't, right? Not only that, we legalize it, and that's still not enough for us, right? And able to buy from online, and that's still not enough. We want to have a shop in every town so we can pick up our weed as convenient as cigarette and alcohol. But at the meantime, we want our kids to act as adults and control themselves and not smoke it. That's not going to happen.
If I can ask you to wrap up.
I'm going to finish very soon, okay? So I'm looking around here. So all the grown-ups, fathers, mothers, Mr. Mayor, and councilors, I want you to be responsible parents and citizens, okay? And tell our federal officials at the local level, at our town of Aurora, the town I love, okay? And say opt-out.
Thank you.
And for our children, our future. Hopefully, many Kevin outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, please. Next up, we have Sean Zhang. If you could state your name, Sean, and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Sean. I'm 12 years old and in the 7th grade. I live in Aurora on 19 Hartwell Way with my family. Today, I'm here to share my opinion about opening private cannabis retail stores in Aurora. We all know cannabis was legalized in Canada last year, but it doesn't mean we should encourage younger people to try or use recreational cannabis by opening cannabis stores in Aurora. If we were to give the youth a more convenient way to obtain cannabis, a larger amount of them would be risking their safety and health. This group might even contain me and my little sister. Richmond Hill, Newmarket, and Markham have all decided to opt out cannabis stores. People from those towns will be looking for a more convenient way to obtain marijuana, and if we decide to opt in cannabis stores, Aurora would become the ideal place. This will lead to an enormous amount of traffic, and from that traffic will come car crashes, and it doesn't help when some of the drivers are high. Youth can easily be involved in some of these car crashes. For example, if me and my little sister were walking to the park and we crossed the street, a car can easily come and hit us. We would be in grave danger because there isn't a hospital nearby other than the one in Newmarket, and that still isn't very close. Even though the provincial government is giving us at least $5,000 if we decide to opt in cannabis stores, it's still not enough to fund our own hospital. We would need this hospital for all the injuries and car crashes there would be. A cannabis store has to be 150 meters away from a school or private school. Yet, there's no restriction like that on other areas where youth might want to hang out, like libraries, daycare centers, community centers, parks, and other open spaces. So, an adult from this cannabis store can easily walk to one of those areas while they're still high, and when they're in that area, the high effect could have worn off. They would become very aggressive and would be looking for a fight, probably. They could easily fight with a teenager like my age. We would be injured because because it's an adult and they would be bigger than us. Back to the 150-meter limit, it's too short of distance because students can easily travel to a store, get some marijuana. Well, they might not be able to, but an older friend might. They can get some marijuana, come back to school high, and can influence younger children to try it. If a younger child were to consume marijuana, seizures and comas can occur, and there are even rare occurrences of heart stroke. Besides, why go to a store with cannabis where you can just purchase it online? It's faster and it's safer for youth since you need a credit card to purchase it. We should definitely opt out cannabis stores for a healthier future for our youth, me and the other youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Next up, we have Stephen Yu. If you state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
294 Conner Ridge Road. Dear Mayor, dear councillors and Aurora residents, as a local resident, a father and a husband, I ask you for support to opt out cannabis retail stores in Aurora with below 3 reasons, and I'm not going to hell. Reason number 1, opt out brings us lower chance to suffer the smell of cannabis in parks, outside libraries, or any other common area. Legal does not mean reasonable or right. I don't want my clothes smell cannabis after passing a smoker on the street. I don't want teenagers to get any convenience to buy cannabis anytime, because all these are unreasonable and unfair to non-smokers. Reason number 2, opt-out brings us a safer Aurora community. A cannabis store does not replace the black market, but instead bring a potential official black market. Who dares to guarantee black guys never run a cannabis store? Who dares to guarantee black guys never jeopardize a cannabis store? Who dares to guarantee a cannabis store never sells any illegal product? No, nobody can. And that's why the best way to mitigate the risk is not to take it at all. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no way back. Reason number 3, avoid unnecessary traffic and risk. Apparently, every cities are discussing opt-out or opt-in. Apparently, it's a case that most of our neighborhoods are opt-out. And how about Aurora opt-in? Want to try? Want to fly? Want to be high? Go to Aurora, the capital of North York cannabis. Aurora, go! Do you want this? Do you want this? No, we don't want this. All in all, we are here to discuss if cannabis stores should be opt-out in Aurora. Did we do the same thing for Tim Hortons, to Shoppers, to Burger King? No, we did not. Because cannabis is something dividing the country, dividing the community, and dividing people. We are not alone. Newmarket, Markham, Richmond Hill, King City, everywhere everybody is discussing to opt out. Can you imagine that if cannabis is overall healthy, positive, beautiful, awesome, helpful, people need to debate? No, because cannabis is arguable, is to be questioned, is worried. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, please help me to opt out. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Everybody, please. Next up, we have Alvin Lung. Alvin, if you can come up, say your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Alvin Lung from 86 Forest Grove Court. Dear councillors and Honorable Mayor Maracas, I recommend that the town of Aurora opts out of cannabis retail stores for the following reasons. Opting in destroys the real estate market. The demographics here are way different than Colorado. The current buyers are conservative. I'm a realtor, I know this. It is naive to think there will be no effect on real estate market. Conservative families would choose to buy in towns that have opted out, and some families will even move out if we opt in. How about long-term strain on healthcare? Short-term financial gain will be offset by falling house prices and therefore falling property taxes and long-term strain on healthcare. Reason number 2, the retail model is broken. The town has no control. AGCO has the final say on location and number of these retail stores. And since our neighboring towns that qualify to get a store have all opted out, we will get many, many stores in Aurora. The mayor of Newmarket says Premier Ford told him that if you opt in, it's a free market. So stores can be in any retail location. 25 licenses is only the first phase. Once supply issue is solved, more licenses will be issued and more will come to Aurora. We will be known as Pot Town. Once we get that stigma, what conservative family would want to live here? According to the Canadian government website, weed has adverse health effects. It is especially harmful to young people under 25 with developing brains and is addictive. Why do we want to subject our kids and our youth to all this extra weed advertising in the form of multiple pot stores? Don't tell me this extra exposure will not greatly increase the chances of our kids using weed. Pot is legal. Don't make it normal or acceptable. We must protect our kids, our youth, our future. Reason number 4, Facebook, PlaySpeak, and Aurora newspaper polls all show residents of Aurora want to opt out, with the Aurora newspaper poll showing an overwhelming 88% opt-out vote, and over 75% of individuals that shared their opinion on PlaySpeak wanted to opt out. Please listen to what people want. If we opt in, we have failed to represent what the people want. There's not enough, number 5, there's not enough info right now to make an educated decision. At the very least, we should opt out to observe the towns that have opted in and see what impact it has on the black market, the usage rates in use, DUIs, crime rates, and property values. The extra funding, if we opted in right now, is negligible. And remember, if we opt in, it is irreversible. But if we opt out, we can always opt in later. So the only responsible option is to opt out. Number 6, my parents own a restaurant in a small town where weed is normal. Almost everyone there smokes up. A former employee that I was very close with lost his wife, who OD'd on cocaine. She was found dead in a public washroom. She started with weed at a very young age, and because she no longer got high off weed, she progressed to cocaine. She left behind 2 young kids. How many families do we want to destroy? Yes, I know it is legal, but don't disregard the temptation of retail outlet and potential addictions. We have no say on alcohol and cigarettes. Why would we want to subject our kids and youth to another harmful substance? We need to take a stand and just say no.
Mr. Lung, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay. For property values, as I said, opt out. For our healthcare system, opt out. For less criminal activity, opt out. For the desire of the residents, that's the most important, opt out. For the fact that it's irresponsible to opt in at this moment, opt out. For our kids and youth, opt out. For the future of our town, opt out. Thank you very much. I hope you'll do everything.
Next up, we have Nancy Lai. Thank you.
My name is Nancy and I live in Aurora, Screen River. Dear Mayor, councilors, thank you very much for this opportunity tonight to allow me to speak on behalf of my family and my neighbors. As the Aurora resident, I'd like to ask you to vote opt-out cannabis retail store in Aurora. I moved into one of the new neighborhood, Aurora, last year. Aurora is a very quiet and beautiful small town to me. People are very peaceful and hardworking here. Like many families that work at downtown, my husband and I are facing a lot of challenges, such as the lack of a parking space, GO station, no shuttle bus. But just despite all of those challenges, we have the very strong faith that everything will be going to be better, like we used to move in Richmond Hill 10 years ago from downtown Toronto. The reason we chose to just move in is because we believe Aurora is a multiple culture and a very peaceful community, and we can raise our kids properly here and then teach them to acknowledge and embrace other cultures from the other cultures. So here I'm sincerely, as a mother, to ask you to consider vote out the cannabis retail store in Aurora and keep this community quiet and family friendly. I don't want to talk too much about the legalization of cannabis since it's already water on the bridge. I didn't get a chance to say no then, and then I want to ask now. So we need to think, and we need to stop and think. Comparing other bigger neighborhood, our town is so much smaller. Just rushing to build one, it will be lack of the consideration. So Aurora already has one clinic for people to buy medical marijuana, and rush to open another one. While the majority of GTA towns already voted opt-out, will be very lack of a consideration and not wise. Another reason that we should opt out the retail cannabis store is, while the absence of the regulation in place, there is no specific rules to tell people, well, they can smoke marijuana. I had to smell marijuana every day when I had to pass Eaton Center last year. If opening a retail store in a mall, or where it will be, people will work here, have to trespass there, will be forced to smoke marijuana against their wills. This is totally against other people's freedom, and even do more harm for people who with their own religions. As we all know, legalization is not necessarily a good thing to do. We need to build a more positive and strong community for our kids. Mayor and Councilor, you're the one we trust, and we are counting on you to make a better community for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have Ling Wang. Ms. Wang, if you could state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Ling Wang, 28 Austin Street. Thank you, everyone. Legalization of cannabis doesn't change one fact. Cannabis is a drug. The potential harms associated with cannabis are considerable. Health Canada, in its April 2017 publication, the health effects of cannabis is uncompromising about the harms of cannabis to users. Some of the short-term effects on the brain from use of cannabis can include confusion, fatigue, impaired memory and concentration, anxiety, fear, panic, and even delusion and hallucinations. Long-term effects on the brain from use of cannabis can include an increased risk of addiction, impairment to memory, concentration, intelligence, as well as impairment of one's ability to think and make decisions. Quote, my understanding from above is use of cannabis has a risk of damaging brains. The question for our community is, with the legalization of cannabis, shall we embrace a retail store in Aurora? In the past years, Aurora Town thrived to put the needs for an active community first. Different programs were developed for Aurora residents, including various of outdoor public activities, holiday celebrations, annual music festivals, various kids camps, free passes for swimming and skating for children, new drop-in sports program for youth, future leader scholarship, Aurora Sports Theme Hall, newly renovated community fitness club, and other programs I may not know of. All these activities and programs were run by a complex system by many town staff involved, in addition to get great budget allocated to them. A lot of programs are free to young youth or children. Fees for summer camp are very competitive. Appear to me the town hall is inviting everyone. We prepare everything. Just come to exercise, to play outdoor, to enjoy community activity, to learn new skills, to be strong in body and in mind. Now, for the sake of funding, shall we accept a drugstore which displays, sells, and try out the product that damage brings? And with this funding, uncertainty portion is based on profit. Just keep in mind, all those higher profits means more people have the damaged brain, ruined health, and maybe the relationship. For the medical marijuana, no problem. Everybody needs that, should have a proper way to get that. We have a medicine system support that. For the alcohol, it can be contained in a cup, but marijuana couldn't. It's a vapor. Once it goes into the air, you have no control of that. You use that in home. If you have children in home, you definitely affect them. If you have a neighbor around you, definitely affect them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Yi Win. You can state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jai Yin from 60 Collins Crescent in Aurora. Okay, I'm a new immigrant with a new immigrant family here for nearly about 5 years, and I've seen the thriving of the city. And also, I'm starting my business running an international student recruitment service company here. And my business also includes providing custodian service to students. So I always try to put my students in closed schools around me here. So in Aurora, we do have currently very good education resources. Like we have York Region District School Board, who's running 4 schools open to international students, including 1 IB program school, and YCDSB, which is York Catholic District School Board, also 4 schools, and we have a top-level private boarding school, St. Andrew's College. So, and in my business, I know Aurora, we also have a very good fame for safer traffic, for more clean and friendly neighborhoods. So it is sometimes in my job as introduction as a different and better place to cities like Toronto. So if we now ever let cannabis stores to open here locally, we will lose those features. How can I promote Aurora to my clients? And if we ever allow cannabis stores to open here, I can't imagine how foreign student families would like to spend considerable money to a small town with cannabis stores running all around us, because they will not try to find out whether it's for recreational usage or medical usage. And I can give a figure here. Every international student spends a lot of money here. Besides the tuition, they need to pay a lot of money to the homestay families for creation, for sports, for all kinds of shops here. And per my company's notes, it could be around 20,000 Canadian dollars every year, average for one student. And I have my competitors here. And I mentioned the number of the schools here. So if you multiply all those numbers, you can get a considerable number, which is very significant. And it's real, traceable, happening. It's not an estimated figure. So I beg you all guys here to consider to help local business to grow instead of the other way around. So thank you for your consideration to opt out. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Paul Chow. Paul? Oh. If you could state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, Your Honorable Mayor, Councillor, and fellow citizens, my name is Paul Chow. I moved into 61 Matchpoint Court, Windows-Siro last year. Okay, the issue on cannabis retail has been well discussed in the media, and the recent opinion is to opt out rather than to opt in. Okay, still, I would like to share my humble experience and observation, and hopes that our capable mayor and respectable councillor will vote on behalf of us and based on factual study rather than individual favoritism. Apart from some guidelines on the location of the retail store, we will have no control on the decision. What happens if it will be close to our home, school, or work? This is very likely because they are all within a few blocks of our small township. 2, the revenue from cigarette taxes, which is very negligible, similarly from cannabis retail, may barely use up all the law enforcement, not to mention if any profit for the town. We will not have extra money to cover extra manpower and service for preventive policies and subsequent control and regulation in police, judicial, social work, counseling, etc. If we have to increase our property tax, this will be unfair to the entire community and discourage future investors. 3, according to my past experience in the police force, in CID, CS squads, and a narcotic bureau in Hong Kong, this kind of business tends to attract the influence of cannabis fantasy people, including user and seller of different characters and gangs from different places to fight for the marijuana black market. We cannot avoid risk of drug abuse, driving, nuisance in the living and business neighborhood, secondhand smoking, gun shooting, pecuniary offenses such as larceny and housebreaking, as well as the introduction of more dangerous drugs into our area through the black market. For a small town of Aurora, we are not ready in money, power, and expertise to deal with the perplexity and unpredictability of the social problem. In Toronto, the police alone will require additional cost of $6 million. After my master's degree in sociology in New York City, I had the opportunity to serve in the youth center and youth counseling unit. The purpose of the service was to keep the young people from street crime or drug abuse. Do we have the manpower for this? Even this will take years to have positive effect to the community. Earlier, I was happy to read from the town newspaper that our mayor has the vision to ensure our wonderful town will have no overdevelopment, which means to me that the town will not jump into any new idea or action without factual study and sufficient planning. The idea to jump into the cannabis retail without clear facts and planning will be great conflict to this vision, and it will affect the viability of our peaceful and friendly township.
Mr.
Instead, it will
Mr.
help
Chow?
to give the publicity to the youth and outsider that Aurora is a cannabis haven.
Mr. Chow,
So I hope we can stay away from these bad influences. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sandra Ferry. Sandra, if you could state your name and, I guess, your position, address.
Good evening, Mayor Maharakis and councillors. I apologize for my voice. My name is Sandra Ferry, and I'm the Executive Director of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. I am here tonight to state the Chamber's position on cannabis retail in Aurora. The Aurora Chamber of Commerce represents about 600 businesses and supports all legal businesses in Aurora. The Chamber should not and will not make any distinction on the types or sectors of products for sale of any legal product. As cannabis is a legal product for sale, once and if the town of Aurora approves the location of any retail stores in Aurora, the Chamber should and will be inclusive of these businesses in our role as an advocate for business. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferry. Thank you, everyone. Leah Seymour. If you could state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. My name is Lee Seymour, and I live at 67 Hammond Drive, Aurora. Thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to speak this evening. My concern is regarding the young people of our community. I'm concerned about them having easy access to mind-altering drugs. I'm concerned about the effects of drivers on the roads with states of mind that may have been altered by non-prescription, easily available drugs. In reviewing the report to the town solicitor, there were a number of areas that I'm concerned about, but for the sake of time, I won't go into that. I have a copy of my presentation for the councillors and the mayor, if you'd like that. According to the government, Ontario Government Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario website, municipalities can opt out and later opt in if desired. But once the decision is made to opt in, it cannot be reversed. Some other people tonight have said that as well. There are many known increased costs to implementing the introduction of retail sales of recreational cannabis. All set-up money that communities might receive from the Ontario government is, quote, to help with the implementation costs. It doesn't say it's going to cover it. And it must be used only in those areas. I investigated some of the effects of legalizing retail stores for the sale of recreational use of cannabis and reviewed a report called Legalization of Marijuana in Colorado, the Impact, updated as of September 2018, 94 pages. Since recreational marijuana was legalized, from 2012 to 2016, hospital emergency department visits increased by 52%, hospitalization increased by 148%, violent crime increased by 18.6%, and traffic deaths increased by 151%. In a California news article by Peter Fimwright, thank you, dated December 28, Steve D'Angelo, CEO of Harborside Health Center in Oakland, California, who cut the ribbon marking the first day of recreational sales in California as of January 1st, 2018, made this comment 1 year later. Unfortunately, and contrary to the wishes of California, the unrolling of legal adult-use cannabis has reinvigorated the underground market rather than curtailed it. And further noted in the article, the revenue as of November of the first year was only a quarter of what was expected. According to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, the illegal black market is siphoning away the money. This article also states that in California, after its first year of legal marijuana sales, the costs of legalization were so high that hundreds of growers and retailers went out of business, and they identified one laboratory that was faking test results. I have other information on health from Health Canada for healthcare professionals. I won't go into that right now. That's on my report here. And there's some consideration of responses for people driving motor vehicles, of course, under the influence of alcohol, and alcohol combined with the cannabis. According to
Ms. Seymour, if I could just ask you to wrap up.
I'm sorry.
And if you'd like, you can hand those out and we'll get
Thank
Linda
you
to
very
pass
much.
them out to the
I'm
council.
asking the town to opt out of putting citizens at risk and for the time being until more studies are done. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Everybody, please, please. And last on our list, we have Corey Clark. Corey, if you could state your name. Oh, do we have more? Oh, okay, sorry. It's not last. If you can state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Corey Clark, 39 Zokel Drive, and I'm glad I'm not last. The hard part about going last, or at the end, is that most of the points have been made. I'm here, I guess, to, I think you're right. You know, we've heard from people who need it for medical use, and I think that they should have it for medical use, and for that reason. But in the very end of the day, and listening to everybody, I am a family who's lost a person to addiction. So I don't see a lot of addicts in the room, and I mean that. And because you don't see addicts, you don't know who they are. My ex-partner died a year and a half ago of addiction. He died. I come from Vancouver. Vancouver has a huge marijuana use, as every party you go to. I've seen it everywhere there is, and it just basically is addictive. It's not the average user who drinks a drink, a glass of wine on Saturday night. It's the person who drinks wine and adds marijuana that I'm kind of talking to. It's my ex did not do any hard drugs. He only drank. He only did marijuana. He only smoked. He tried to quit smoking. He used Champex. Addiction is addiction, and marijuana is actually a drug. So I think you have to look at it that way with families. My ex-partner, his father was a heart surgeon. He had lots of money. He started very young. I think he came from the same demographic as Aurora. And if you look at our young people, you have to look at maybe where they'll be 10, 15 years from now. If we have open cannabis stores, you have to kind of see the culture that I know that he had lots of money, but he never went to a legitimate place to buy it. He did buy it kind of Skid Row because he was embarrassed to be buying it. So if you're looking at a family that doesn't want to go into the store and doesn't want to be seen there, there's still going to be a black market for this drug. They're also going to undercut the prices because he went to the cheapest place he could. And last but not least, I'll say we spent $40,000 in rehab to very expensive stores, or to very expensive rehabs and things. So you have to look at it as a point of addiction. The thing I want to say personally to, as being someone who watched somebody, I met one man, and years later, after a lot of marijuana use and alcohol, he died another man. So I do believe it changes your brain. And one night he chose, I asked him to choose between myself and a very small bag of weed. He chose the weed. I think there are choices that people make once they start smoking, and people who become addicted that may be bad for our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Everybody, please. Next up, we have Ricky Chung. If you could come up, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Ricky Chung. I live at 47 Robb Street in Aurora. I moved here around 2 years or so ago. So I'm just going to throw out there, I suggest we opt out based on a lot of the different reasons that's mentioned already for the 18 people or so we went through. But I just also want to chime in based on my profession as a program manager in a pretty large enterprise. I manage a lot of multi-million-dollar programs, and when there is a lot of risk associated with a decision, we always would go through a pretty intensive scoping exercise and also a pretty extensive pilot. So as mentioned by a lot of people already before me, is if we opt in now, we can't really opt out. So I definitely would encourage everyone to really opt out right now. Go for the proper scoping, understand all the benefits and all the risk involved, and really make an informed decision at that point, because sometimes I run smaller projects just maybe impacting one team or one department, but we're talking about town here. A lot of people, a lot of families involved, so just to be responsible, we need to make sure that we scope out all the benefits and all the challenges and also the downsides, which is pretty important. So that's all I'm going to say. I suggest we opt out.
Thank you. Next up, we have Air Clan Ma. If you could state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, dear Mr. Major, councilors, ladies and gentlemen. I was about to hold a signage, and then I was told I'm not allowed to, so I quickly jotted down this paper because I want my voice to be heard. I don't want to see the cannabis store in Aurora. This is my reason. I'm a mother of 3. All of them were born in Canada. 2 of them were born in South Lake Hospital. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say that my name is Elena Ma. I live on 251 Orchard Heights Boulevard in Aurora. I choose Aurora to be my home. I love Aurora. Every day, I bring my kids to school, to after-school classes. They do painting, dancing, piano, karate, skating. When they are done, sometimes they would use their little fingers to point to a little local store like Tim Hortons, DQ, Wendy's, KFC's, to enjoy some dessert or finger food. I normally love to enjoy a cup of coffee, sitting there watching them while they were working on their Timbits. It's always a pleasure, joyful thing. I guess most of you would have the same experience. That's beautiful. But now, what if they point their little fingers to our cannabis store and ask it curiously, can I try that too? if they see the store so many times, they would take it for granted. They would think it's something that they can try for some little pleasure when they are old enough. It's just a time. It's just a matter of time when they are 19 years old. And who knows? They could have some older friends can bring them because it's a society. As a mother, I want to protect my children, but the society is such a big impact. So, like yesterday, I met a mother. She was so glad, and she said, "Look, that place has been empty for so many years. I'm so happy that Aurora are building a big playground there. My kids are so happy." I don't know what her response would be when she say, "Oh, that place has been turned into a cannabis store." It's hard to imagine. I love Aurora, and I care about the economies, but I also care about the future of this town. So please opt out the cannabis store in Aurora. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, everybody. Please, thank you. Next up, we have John Zhu. If you state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
3 minutes may be too long. My name is John Zhu from 69 Poynton Street. 20 years ago, I became a Canadian, and I love this country because safe, peace. And 15 years ago, I moved to Aurora, and I love this town. And now I feel everything supposed will be changed. And if this kind of the store open in Aurora, I think is a very high risk for us. So I totally disappoint for those kind of the store open in Aurora. Today, this is my first time to come into this room, but I promise I represent those, I think it's a neighbor around the 4 house, and they tell me, and we will promise everybody, and the starter for today, we will come into here, we will be focused for Aurora, most of the things, and try our best to help here, everybody, to do some things, let our Aurora change to much better and better. That's all.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers? Next up, we have David Hurd. Mr. Hurd, you can state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to leave these on. Thanks to the Customer Service Department for this very cool device for somebody with an invisible disability. These things are awesome. David Hurd, 15 Ransom Street, Aurora. I've been in Aurora 57 years, very proudly, as you probably know. What I'd like to know is, my question is, where are the petitions against alcohol? The World Health Organization several years ago, President, had to fight to release his report, fight against the board, and that report was that alcohol was worse than heroin. Mr. Mayor, you put a poll online that was considerably, I believe it was opt-in, and I posted on one of your posts several links to many reports that were all the same. Alcohol was devastating to communities. Where are the petitions now? Cannabis on one of those reports was way down the list. Way down the list. I'd also like to say that I have been an Aurora resident for 57 years, and I have attended a lot of funerals. Many of them for alcoholism, many of them for fentanyl overdoses, a lot of them as a result of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I knew these people personally since I was a child. Not one of them was a cannabis user. I knew them well. And I have not attended a funeral of a person that used cannabis. Not once. And I want to tell you a little personal story. Here stands a person who Wasn't proud enough to say it before, but a person stands before you with a hearing challenge, legally deaf, only hearing in half of one ear, PTSD, COPD, and autism. And I was asked by a medical company to be a guinea pig, and I was diagnosed with COPD 3 years ago and the lungs of an 83-year-old man. After trying this, I went back for an annual test and was shocked when the doctor said to me, I didn't expect to find this. My blood oxygen level had gone up to 97%. I've never felt better. My lungs cleared. How can this be a demon drug? Seriously. Alcohol, look at the studies. If you want to speak up about what's been killing and harming our communities. This is not, I do not believe from my heart and soul, going to harm our community. Education, awareness, that's where it starts. And I believe Aurora is going to be smart and be a leader in that and do this the right way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Everybody, please, 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 thank you. Next up, we have Wong Zhang. If you can state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My address is 18 Forest Court in Aurora. I didn't prepare. I just come back vacation last week. Most people already speak out my point. I only have 3.1 to say. For my option, for sure, is no. Let's kick out. The reason has 3. First of all, our neighbor towns already choose no. If we choose E, Aurora will be signature of Mariana Center. We don't want to be famous as this bad title. The first book. Second of all, the marijuana pollution for sure is worse than second-hand smoking. If choose store in means first all the neighborhood take the pollution. We don't want the pollution. It's not a good thing. Even for government, try to be legalized. Use so many years to argue to make it legal. Illegal or legal, so many years argument to make it, for sure it's not good. It's not good environment, it's not good air. It's pollution for the town. If we open the store, for legalize, we cannot control the government. But for our town, we have to make our town air clean, not pollution by marijuana. Third, if we open the store in Aurora, means encourage all our kids, our teenage, encourage them to try it. Okay, for those we have LCBO, smoking, all their control, we have to control them, and adult only can take it. Make them under control. If we make a marijuana store in there, the kids try to, oh, we have that signature. Oh, we encourage them, grow up, try that, all on the table to try it. It's not good experience. It's not good for them grow up. It's really bad. It slowly kill kids' future. That's why I object out for sure. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Everyone, please. Next, we have Roger Dong. If you can state your name, sir, and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
So my name is Roger Dong, living in 1996 Hackwood Crescent, Aurora. So I'm living here since 1915, and for the marijuana, definitely for myself, I don't think it's good for the selling in town. From my ex-parents, my son, when he was in the high school, he tells me a story. He said, "Oh, Dad, I've tried marijuana once, but you tell my mom because he will kill me." But he says because his classmates give him to try, and he said a lot higher the age of the students sell marijuana to them, sell them. But what he tried out, he said he feel nothing else. But from the news and the the experience everybody does, the take marijuana is take time to be adapted. And once the time is for the cocaine or the even worse drugs take is seen a lot comes from the start from the marijuana. So the marijuana, if they sell in Aurora, I'm assuming the lots of kids will be adapted, or the students in the school were easy to be reached at. You will be getting them more and more easy for them to get adopted. So definitely this is for myself. I don't think this is we should for the vote yes. We should for no for the marijuana store here. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Next up, we have Hong Yu. Hung Yu? No? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll move on to Da Hai. If you could state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. My name is Da Hai, 45 Bridge North Drive. It's cold out there. I just walked in half an hour ago. But I feel the house is heated. There are a lot of people. When I look at the spectrum, there's the parents, the grandparents, and the young generations. I work as a faculty member at the public college. Always the first time when I walk into the classroom, I look at my student and the audience. I like to get an idea who are there. I'm very happy today there's so many people here, and I'm glad that the councilors and your administration give the transparent discussion. There's a lot of discussions, a lot of evidence. Even when I do research, I look at both sides. I think tonight there's so many, not only opt-in, opt-out, everybody speak their free mind and discussions. I think that's good. The way I look at it, let's compare the different sides in terms of emergency, right? There are so many reasons, for economic reason, for the housing reason, for the traffic reason. But when you look at the people who want to opt in, they want to make sure it's safe for the kids, for the resident. And when you look at the people who want to opt out, they also want to make sure it's safe and good for their kids. Ultimately, I think when we make the decision, we want to make sure our next generation live in a healthy environment in Aurora. So when we look at our kids, it's like the kids look at the mirror. The adults, the parents, set up a very good example for their kids. So, in the old days, we usually hand over our fate to God to make a decision. But today, I think the residents want to hand over that decision to you, the councilors, to make a wise decision. So that many days and many years from now today, when we look back, we're not going to regret the decision we make. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Laura Schaefer. Schaefer, if you can state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Laura Schaefer. I live at 92 Gateway Drive. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and speak. I didn't come here with the intention of speaking, but listening to all the opinions, which I respect dearly, I want to tell you on a different, on a different vision and different note. We are looking at medical grade marijuana, lab tested, that is clean and available. My son has epilepsy. He was diagnosed at the age of 5 years old and was drug resistant for a very long time. If marijuana had been available, which we could have, we looked at that when he first started before looking into pharmaceuticals, and it wasn't available. We'd have to bring it in through the United States. It would be stopped at the border. If we did try to get it in, the likelihood of us getting it was impossible. What I will tell you is that because it wasn't available to get it, my son had to go on benzodiazepines on top of other medications. Currently, my son is addicted to medication, and it is not marijuana. He could have the opportunity to take a medication that not only will be beneficial for his health. He's been on medications that have made him lose his speech. Marijuana wouldn't make him lose his speech. He's been on medications that have caused rage and anger and changed his personality. Marijuana would not do that to him. If we had that readily available, where even now that it is available, it still will cost over $250 for a 3-day supply to be shipped here and not even guaranteed to get here in time. Once again, this is lab-tested, medical-grade marijuana that we're looking at, and everyone is so concerned about their children. So am I. I'm concerned about my children too. I'm concerned about their well-being and what will be good for them and for their future. I have 3 kids. I've been a resident of Aurora for 11 years, and I don't believe in any way this will change whether or not a child is going to go and pick and choose to do marijuana. They will do it if they want to, whether it's available to them legally or not legally or easily available. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we have Francis Wan. Francis? Thank you. If you could state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Francis Guan, and dear Mr. Mayor and councillors, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak up. I'm just decided to speak before 10 minutes ago, so this is my impromptu speech. I just want to say 2 points. I live in Aurora, 7 Tannery Creek Crescent, just around Aurora High School area. I've been in Aurora since 2005. Okay, I want to talk about the 2 points. The first point is whenever we implement a project, we always do some pilot, correct? And for this one, even though it's just legalized and there's no pilot done yet, so there's no pros and cons clear to everybody yet. So I want everybody to think about to just take the time to wait and to see what's the result from other towns which they already made decision. The second point is my real point. I want to share my own story here. I came from China, and in 2001, before that, I was working as a 3D animator, and I was facing a lot of difficulties, not just because of my professional area, but also the relationships with the colleagues, with everybody, maybe boss. I jumped from one job to the other job, just trying to avoid the conflict with people, but I do not know how to deal with them eventually. Eventually, I got sick, and really sick, distressed, and causing the physical health problem. Luckily, at that time, when I was lying on the bed for 3 months, completely cannot do anything to helping myself, thanks to my family that helped me to get through that. But in the same time, I got a Bible. And that Bible helped me to understand that I did a lot of things wrong. I see my own problems in my character, personality, that I need to overcome. That's not something that I can blame the environment. No matter where I change the job from one to the other, doesn't matter. I will face the same difficulties. So that's why I started to trying to grasp the divine power that to help me to see my own problem and to overcome them, to learn how to facing the challenges in the reality. And think about if at that time I have marijuana at my hand, I could easily escape from the reality. I could easily to shun away from my own problems. I don't need to build up my characters. Right now, I've been working in York region for 8 years. I'm really thankful that God helped me, and I hope that the town could spend the resource to introduce the real resource value system to the teenagers, to the kids, when the time that they really need to build their character, to face this modern world.
Ms. Wong, can I ask you to wrap it up, please?
Thank you. I just want to opt out. I want everybody hear that that's not the right way for the kids to escaping.
Thank you. Everybody, please. Next up, we have Linda Gao. If you can state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Linda Gao. I live in 41 Clark Art Lane in Aurora. So I just wrote a short articles for this one. In my opinion, I think opt-out the physical retail store is a better option right now because first of all, it will damage, if we have physical retail store in Aurora, will damage the fame of Aurora. It's since 1800, we have this beautiful, wealthy city, and we don't want to damage the fame. And the second of all, we have close to 18,000 population in Aurora. They are younger than 24 years old. And so if we have a physical retail store in Aurora, they will be exposed easily access to those cannabis. So for them, because due to their growth and development nature of their brain, they tend to make emotional, intuitive, quick decisions. And so they may make quick decisions to buy cannabis from those physical retail stores. That will really damage their short memory, their brain development. And the other 17% are younger than 19 years old. They're constantly seeking role models around them. If we have those, they will learn. So that's, but in Aurora, I searched the Wikipedia about Aurora. I noticed we has had so many NHL hockey players, so many athletes, because we valued sports, we valued all arts, music, all those things instead of cannabis. And the last point I want to make is because right now, opt out, we don't have to, it's not necessary for now, because once we opt out, we can opt in anytime. And just like why we put Aurora, this beautiful city, in the front line of a hurricane, because the closer, the quick decision we make, we're gonna make ourselves, this city, in front of the hurricane to put us in a riskier position. And the last one is, so I just wanna, protect our community. We can wait and see to find better solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, is there any more speakers? No? We're done with that? Okay, so we are done with the public consultation portion of this meeting. So we will move and continue with the meeting. We are going to have our town solicitor present to us. She has 15 minutes, and so I'll ask Ms. Desario to come up. Councillors, I'll remind you that we will begin regular procedure, so we will be able to ask Ms. Desario questions after the presentation. So, Ms. Desario, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Maracus and members of council. Tonight, as we've heard, council needs to decide whether Aurora will opt out and prohibit private cannabis retail stores, or whether it will opt in and permit them. Before you jump into your discussion, I'd like to take the opportunity to provide you with the current law as it relates to cannabis retail stores, the process for opting in or opting out, and some considerations addressed in my report to assist you in making that decision. I will not be discussing the use and consumption of recreational cannabis, home cultivation of cannabis, or illegal storefronts. Further reports in regard to those issues will be brought before council as the need arises. So following the legalization of recreational cannabis in October of last year, the provincial government announced that it would allow private cannabis retail stores beginning April 1st, 2019. So on October 14, 2018, the Cannabis License Act 2018 and Ontario Regulation 468/18 came into effect. that set out a licensing and regulatory framework for the private retail of recreational cannabis and gave the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario the authority to license, regulate, and enforce the sale of recreational cannabis through private retail stores. In mid-December, the regulation was amended so that there is now a temporary cap for a period of a year of 25 retail store authorizations that will be issued. The amended regulation also separates the province into regions and allocated a certain number of retail store authorizations to each region. York Region is part of the GTA region, together with Durham, Peel, and Halton regions. Only 6 retail store authorizations will be allocated to the GTA region this year, with one condition being that the proposed retail store must be within a municipality that has a population of over 50,000. My first report, CS 19-001, outlines the licenses and authorizations required to operate a private cannabis retail store. For the purpose of this presentation and for time, I'll only highlight the retail store authorization. That authorization is required for the specific location of a store and will only be issued in those municipalities that have opted in. The legislation provides council with the one-time opportunity to opt out and prohibit cannabis retail stores from being located in the town. To do so, council must pass a resolution by January 22nd, tomorrow, which must be then forwarded to the AGCO. If a resolution to opt out is not received by AGCO by the deadline, then by default, private cannabis retail stores will be permitted within the town. If council decides to opt out tonight, council may at any time by resolution reverse this decision. If council decides tonight to opt in and permit cannabis retail stores, there is no need to pass a resolution. However, staff recommend that one be passed anyway in order to address certain matters that I'll touch upon as I go through the presentation. And it's important to remember, and it has been already said, that a decision to allow retail stores is final and cannot be reversed. The next few slides of the presentation will deal with matters that council should be aware of as a result of either decision. So if council does permit private cannabis retail stores, council cannot enact a bylaw to license these stores, nor can it enact a bylaw that zones private cannabis retail stores as a separate land use from any other permitted retail use within the town. However, operators of these stores are still required to comply with the town's official plan and its zoning bylaw in regard to zones and standards that apply to all retail stores. So for example, the store may only be located in a retail zone and it must comply with retail setbacks and other standards. And then depending upon the situation, the building code and fire code may apply and the appropriate inspections would be required. The legislation provides for a minimum distance separation from schools so that private cannabis retail stores shall not be located less than 150 meters from a school or a private school as defined in the Education Act. A school is one that is organized under the jurisdiction of a school board or operated by the Ontario government. And a private school is an institution that doesn't fall within the definition of school, but that provides instruction between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. on any school day for 5 or more pupils that are over the age of 6. So as mentioned, while there is a minimum distance separation from schools, private schools, there is no legislated requirement that prohibits a store from being too close to daycares, nurseries, or other similar educational institutions that don't fit into either of those definitions. In addition, there are no minimum distance separations from other sensitive land uses, such as parks, community centers, libraries, addiction centers, and other private cannabis retail stores, or any other place that have similar type uses as those just mentioned. As part of the application process, for a retail store authorization, the applicant is required to give notice by posting a notice at the location of the proposed retail store. The AGCO will also provide notice of applications on its website. Although the AGCO encourages the applicant to contact the municipality ahead of time, there is no legal obligation to do so. There is also no legal requirement for the AGCO to notify the town directly. When notice is provided, the region, the town, or any Aurora resident will have 15 calendar days of the posting of the notice to make a written submission to the AGCO. The submission is limited to whether the issuance of the retail store authorization for the specific location is in the public interest. And for this purpose, matters of public interest relate only to the following: protecting public health and safety, protecting youth and restricting their access to cannabis, and preventing illicit activities in relation to cannabis. So some of the challenges was that a 15-day commenting window was not enough time for council to consider the application. Also, because of the lack of minimum distance separations of other uses, staff suggests that minimum distance separation from sensitive land uses would fall under matters of public interest as defined in the legislation and on this slide, and therefore the AGCO should take these uses also into consideration as a matter of public interest when reviewing retail store authorization applications. Therefore, if council chooses to opt in and permit private cannabis retail stores, then these issues may be addressed in a resolution that would be forwarded to the AGCO. There are also financial implications of the decision made tonight. So the provincial government has announced that it will be setting aside $40 million over 2 years in a fund called the Ontario Cannabis Legalization Implementation Fund. The first payment is to support municipalities with implementation costs relating to the legalization of cannabis. The town has received an allocation notice from the Ministry of Finance indicating that its first payment is $26,324. The second payment depends upon whether municipality decides to opt in or opt out of stores, since this payment is provided to support the initial costs related to hosting private cannabis retail stores. For this payment, any municipality that opts out will only receive a further $5,000, and any municipality that opts in will receive a minimum of $5,000, with further funding calculated on a per household basis. The province has also set aside $10 million to address costs from unforeseen circumstances related to the legalization of recreational cannabis. But this amount will be distributed with priority given to those municipalities that have chosen to opt in. Lastly, if Ontario's portion of the federal excise duty on recreational cannabis over the first 2 years of legalization exceeds $100 million, the province will provide 50% of the surplus, again, only to municipalities that have opted in as of January 22nd. So if council decides to opt out tonight and then opt in at a future date, Aurora will not be eligible for this extra revenue. And while the decision is entirely council's decision, any decision made will have an impact on the amount of funding received by the region of York. The town and the region will receive a 50-50 split of the allocation by the province, but the town and the region may adjust the percentage of the split if they agree to do so. This slide has the same information as the previous slide that I just discussed, but it's in a perhaps better to understand or review chart. But I'm changing it. So the province has made it clear that the money received from the fund must only be used to pay for implementation costs directly related to the legalization of cannabis, such as increased enforcement, increased response to public inquiries, increased fire and paramedic services, and bylaw or policy development. It doesn't appear that this requirement also extends to the revenue received from the federal excise duty. So, even if council decides to opt out and not permit cannabis retail stores in Aurora, residents over the age of 19 will still be able to purchase cannabis online and in other municipalities that have opted in and have authorized retail stores. One of Aurora's adjoining municipalities, Richard-Stouffville, has opted in. However, because of the condition that at this time a retail store authorization may only be used for a location in a municipality that has a population of over 50,000, Richard-Stouffville will not have one of the first 25 stores. I had included sample resolutions to the first report with an amendment to a resolution to opt in found in the additional report. So if council chooses to opt out, then it should pass a resolution confirming its decision to opt out and forward it to the AGCO, York Region, and local municipalities. In that resolution, staff recommend that council also delegate authority to the CAO and treasurer to negotiate and enter into agreements with other governments, such as York Region. If council chooses to opt in, then a resolution is not required, but as mentioned, staff recommend that a resolution be passed anyway that sets out council-approved matters of public interest that the AGCO should consider for every application, and that delegates authority to staff to make submissions on applications to the AGCO based upon these council-approved matters of public interest. And then similar to the resolution to opt out, staff recommend that the opt-in resolution also delegate authority for the agreements, and that the resolution be forwarded to the AGCO, York Region, and local municipalities. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Serio. Any comments or questions, councillors? Councillor Gartner.
Could you just help me understand better whether we opt in or out? We should do something called matters of public interest and send it into the government. Would that be things like not allowing smoking near libraries, etc.?
Mr. Serio?
No.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, matters of public interest, they just pertain to the location of the retail store. So in the regulation, the retail store, if it's allowed in any municipality, has to be 150 meters away from schools or private schools. It doesn't talk about daycares, nurseries, or any other sensitive land uses. So we're suggesting that these daycares, nurseries, these other sensitive land uses are still considered matters of public interest and will fall under the definitions, those 3 reasons of what would be considered matters of public interest. So if council chooses to opt in, then we would want to send a resolution to the AGCO with us, almost like a policy statement of what we would be considering are matters of public interest, and that they review these types of uses every time an application is received by them.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. So that is similar to a municipal cannabis retail policy statement that was mentioned in the report?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Serio?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Serio. In the report we were given, we were advised that each lower tier municipality, they can allocate the excise taxes that's handed down to us by the province as we so please in terms of the allocation between us and the region. So in the case of, let's say, Vaughan, if they opted in, they chose to opt in and they chose to allocate 80% of the excise taxes to York Region, would that also benefit Aurora as well, or can they put conditions on and say, we're going to do an 80-20 split, but we want that 80% to benefit and go towards the city of Vaughan? Can you clarify, please?
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So for the first part, I just want to clarify that it's not the federal excise tax that we're talking about. We're really talking about the first payment and second payment, because it's unknown whether there will be any federal excise or any revenue from federal excise tax. But in response to the question, which is basically if there is a split, can the region's portion be used in other areas in the region? It's unknown right now. I don't, unless...
Because if they're allocating to the region, I mean, the region can allocate to the whole region. They're not going to say this is just going to Vaughan. Otherwise, Vaughan wouldn't have given their portion to the region.
So unfortunately, there's not enough information as to what the region will be getting, what they're required to use their funds for. All the documentation and all the news releases that have come out is based more on local municipalities. So it's difficult to answer that question right now.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Okay, we will move to consideration of items requiring discussion. Council, I am looking at the time. I'm believing that instead of starting into this and then asking for a health break in 15 minutes, I suggest that we take our break right now and then we move into our discussion. If everyone's agreeable to that, we will take a break, a 10-minute recess. Good? Okay, 10-minute recess. 10-minute recess, everyone. Council, we're going to resume. So Council, we have two items for discussion. We're going to put them together, considering they're both about the same thing. First, I need someone to put a motion on the floor. I got Councillor Humphreys first.
I'd like to put option vote in, opt in.
So option to opt in?
Yep.
Is that fine? Can I get a seconder? Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Humphreys, is that the recommended option that was put on the back of our thing? Okay, thank you. Can we get that up on the screen then? Seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Okay, thank you. And before I ask for comments and questions, I'd just like to make a comment. First off, I want to thank everyone for coming this evening to participate in this important discussion. I recognize that there are some strong opinions on whether pot should be legal, but our decision tonight has no bearing on whether cannabis is legal or not. That decision has already been made by the federal government with the passing of Bill C-45, the Cannabis Act. Tonight's debate is not and should not be a proxy for a debate on the legalization of marijuana, nor should it be a debate about the morality of pot use. That is better addressed by the candidates in the pending federal election. Tonight, Council is deciding whether we will opt in or out of allowing access to a legal substance in the form of a retail outlet in our community. And as your representative, my role is to make decisions that are in the best interest of the community as a whole. And that those decisions should be informed decisions based on the best available information and leave the emotions aside. In preparation for tonight's debate, I've reached out to a very broad range of stakeholders, from residents to the police chief, and I've reviewed as much of the written available information as possible. There are arguments to be made on both sides. Some are fact-based and others are not, driven more by emotion of whether cannabis should be legal. Now, I'd like to speak to some of those concerns that I've heard. When considering these decisions, I had significant concerns about the costs, social and financial, associated with the legalization of recreational cannabis. Every municipality in this province is going to bear the costs of the implementation of this federal legislation. And in my mind, not enough has been done to support our municipalities in addressing these added costs. Today, residents can purchase, use, grow, and in the case of two local businesses, commercially produce cannabis in Aurora. Yet some people have suggested that if we allow a retail cannabis outlet in Aurora, that our property values will go down. There is no evidence that I am aware of to support that supposition. We have had two medical commercial cannabis production facilities in Aurora for several years now and have not seen a negative impact on home sales or values. Similarly, we also have had other regulated drugs, such as methadone, for sale in Aurora for years now with no negative impact to home sales or value. The second key concern raised is that a retail store will increase youth access to and consumption of cannabis. Now, I share residents' concerns about youth access to controlled substances, in particular to alcohol, tobacco, and now cannabis. However, I have not seen any evidence to support the position that a retail outlet will increase the accessibility for youth. In fact, reports suggest the opposite. Prior to the legalization, 28% of youth aged 15 to 24 used cannabis that had purchased illegally. Access to illegal cannabis was a significant problem, and the intended purpose of the Cannabis Act is to address that illegal use and all the negative implications associated with it. As per the regulations, no one under the age of 25 will be even allowed to enter a retail outlet without identification to prove that they are 19 or older, let alone make a purchase. And sanctions for the sale of anyone under 19 are very severe. A regulated outlet will decrease access to illegal drugs. The third key concern is enforcement, not just for impaired driving, but enforcement of safety standards related to growing cannabis at home. Retail sale of cannabis will be highly regulated. The same cannot be said for growing cannabis at home. Right now, each person in this room is allowed to grow 4 plants at home. The Toronto Medical Officer of Health noted that the federal task force identified significant hazards associated with growing cannabis at home, including mold, electrical hazards, and fire, not to mention the increased likelihood to access to cannabis by children. Clearly, enforcement of safety standards at the municipal level should be a paramount concern. And rather than focusing on highly regulated retail sales, I believe our focus should be developing a task force to deal with management of enforcement issues as they relate to public health concerns of cannabis use in public spaces, in multi-unit housing, on impaired driving, and safety standards related to home growing. We need a regional strategy to address the complex issues associated with managing the associated enforcement issues. Whether we have a retail outlet or not will have no impact on the fact that we will have to deal with those enforcement issues. Regardless of whether Aurora opts in or out, taxpayers will bear increased costs associated with its sale. If we choose to opt in, then those costs will be partially offset by access to a portion of excess taxes. If we opt out, we do not get access to that additional funding. Nothing we do here this evening will change the fact that cannabis is legal. A decision to opt out will not magically reduce the use of cannabis in our community. It will just limit one avenue for our residents to access a legal, federally regulated product and force them to drive 15 minutes down the road to Stouffville or Bradford, while at the same time cut off access to tax revenue that our community will need to address the enforcement issues. And for those reasons, I will be opting in. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me start out by saying that I'm not in favor of the motion, and I'm in favor of opting out. I'll start by saying that my comment's not about the legal argument. You know, that ship has sailed. We all know that. No one can really refute some of the medical benefits of cannabis in certain conditions. I don't think we will know the full extent of cannabis for decades, just like tobacco. It was made legal over 120 years ago, but it was only about 80 years later did we know the full downstream impacts of tobacco. You know, many things are permissible, aka legal, but not all things are beneficial. You know, indeed, marijuana is now legal, but do we really, as a town, want to promote it by allowing private retailers to open up a storefront? And let there be no mistake about it, private retailers will not be simply taking your order. They are here to turn a profit, as evidenced by the skyrocketing of marijuana stocks on the stock exchanges. The profit-driven aspect of storefront stores means active promotion of the product. They will not be a passive store taking order. Promotion of an inherently bad thing is never good for public health. We had 2 large cannabis recalls in the last couple of months. Each time, private sellers continue to sell the product because they already purchased the product from the manufacturers and do not want to suffer financial loss. And do I need to reiterate that public health and safety is not on the minds of marijuana sellers? And consider this, of the 25 lottery winners of the cannabis license, 2/3 were sole proprietors, mom and pop stores, not large corporations who have processes and procedures in place. These are people who essentially consider themselves as having won a lottery. In December of this year, they will be able to sell those licenses to the highest bidder when the province announces the second round of licenses. Now, I can go on for a long time with my thoughts on this issue, but I want to make the arguments very clear by simply examining what is at stake if we opt out, as well as what is at stake if we opt in. Now, if we opt out, we sacrifice what? Recreational convenience, medicinal use? I'll simply state that cannabis is still very easily available online for these purposes. Now, here's what is at stake if we opt in. And please keep in mind that some of what follows might sound like I'm arguing against the legalization, but again, that's not the point. What follows are my thoughts on how profit-driven local distribution stores will exacerbate some of these same issues and add new ones. Now, public health and safety is, of course, the primary concern. First, we know that marijuana is as bad as tobacco for lungs, but worse because marijuana smokers inhale more deeply and longer, increasing the toxic effects. The added high effect arguably makes it more enjoyable and thus more addictive. The full spectrum of negative health effects have not been fully researched, but they do not look promising. And second, the many ways it can be consumed makes it particularly attractive and thus dangerous, especially amongst the most vulnerable. One menu posted at a cannabis store in the U.S. lists the following offerings, which reads as a veritable smorgasbord of titillating opioid-laced goodies: strawberry-flavored chewy bites, large citrus gummy bears, delicate or delectable Belgian dark chocolate bars, raspberry-flavored lozenges, and so on. You know, there's no doubt that the menu is meant to look enticing, especially to young eyes. The greater probability with edibles is that overdose is highly possible because it could take as long as 4 hours to feel the effects. Third, accidental pediatric poisonings have already been reported in the media. How could this possibly not happen when once childish treats, now laced with opioids, become commonplace and easily available at your local pot store? And today's National Post also talks about many seniors now trying cannabis for the first time via edibles, and resulting in a whole host of dangers due to mixing with all the other drugs that seniors take. And fourth, ask any local high school teacher, and they will tell you that many of our youth already struggle with focus, motivation, growing pains, mental illness, and various addictions. And do we really need to open them up to a new temptation? You know, storefront promotion as sanctioned by their local government will send the message that legal means perfectly okay, and it is not. In addition to these exacerbated health and safety concerns of local distribution stores, storefront promotion of this highly toxic and addictive substance does not align with Aurora's character and reputation as a town committed to the environment and the health and active living of its citizens. You know, we had our Member of Parliament, Kyle Peterson, state last year in a private member's bill that Aurora, a new market, is the most healthiest and active community in Canada. We have also partnered with various sports organizations to promote active and healthy lifestyle. And also we had a local community group also do a big push on healthy eating within our 2 recreation centers. And indeed, we passed a motion that 55% of all products will be of the healthy eating type. So how, may I ask, does a pot store fit in this picture? Did I pass my 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I'll wait for my second part. Thank you.
Councillor Kim. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was an incredibly difficult decision for me and for all of us. Throughout, since October the 17th until today and tonight, listening to both perspectives are 100% right in terms of, opting out, opting in. The bottom line, though, and I had a whole speech here ready for everyone, but first of all, the mayor has captured it very, very eloquently and well, and for all the reasons he's mentioned is why, at the end of the day, I've opted in. But more importantly, what I hear the discussion is the legalization of cannabis is really at the tip of our tongues, and many of us, including myself, are not happy with that. And that's something we have to do and vote at the federal level, and we're going to have a chance to do that. Unfortunately, it has been legalized for all of us. So now what do? I don't think sitting back and opting out is an option. I'll tell you why, and I'm going to share something very personal with you. We have some personal comments tonight. In my home, in my daughter, and she asked me to share tonight on her behalf because she needs everyone to hear. 15-year-old girl, good girl, worked hard, studied hard, was great at school, and she thought she'd have fun on her birthday with her friends at 15. Someone bought them cannabis, and it was laced with rat poisoning. We dealt with that for over 3 years. Someone talked about anxiety and consequences of that. I'm not suggesting a legalized retail store could have prevented that for my daughter or for any other children. But it would have, if this was going to happen, because kids are going to make mistakes. We have to guide them as parents, grandparents. We have to be their constant conscience. And trust me, I was over my kids with drugs and alcohol. I've never tried it. I'm not a user. I don't intend to use it, cannabis. I don't judge anyone who does, because if you need it, you need it. If you like it, go for it. I don't judge anybody. But I try to help and protect my children, and my daughter made a mistake. She's asked me that if she could have asked an older person of 25 years old today to go in and buy that, she could have avoided that issue. She probably never would have tried it again, and she wouldn't have the ongoing lingering effects that she has to this date. And it is a fact that she has lingering effects due to the lacing of that cannabis. These retail stores will provide a safe, regulated place for people to obtain a legalized substance. This is the first step in trying to get the illegal drugs off our streets here in Aurora and making them safe. It may not make sense. It's hard for me to understand and grasp as well, but I do believe that this is the first step in trying to get the illegal activities off our streets, have a storefront that you can't be 25 years, you can't be less than 25 years old to get in the door, and there's a real difficulty to get in that door. And then once you're in, you can't just pick it off the shelf. You have to ask. It's like a pharmacy. It's going to be very, very regulated, very, very difficultly. And I'll tell you, when I walk by those stores with my 7-year-old grandson, he's going to ask me what that is, and I'm going to say, it's stuff that older people do, and it's really crazy, and don't do it. But if you do it when you're 25, it's up to you. But until then, I'm going to give him all I can in education, and I'll continue to do that. And we all will do that for our children. You know what? You're great. Everyone here tonight is wonderful. Both sides have a great perspective, and we need to take care of our youth 100%. We just got to keep reminding them, right and wrong, be there for them, guide them, and when the federal election comes through, let's vote the right way then. I have one more comment, Mr. Mayor. I'm very disappointed in the federal government that they made Ontario make this option at the municipal level. Should never have happened. It's an unfair position to put us in, to make this decision. That to me is a cop-out, and I'd love to talk to our federal MP about it as well. But really that's all I have tonight. The mayor captured all of his comments. I just wanted to share that personal story with you to hope you realize that it's not an easy decision for me. It's not an easy decision for my peers. We're hoping for the best for our town. You're wonderful residents, and I know that it will continue to be a wonderful, great town. We'll make sure of it through enforcement, superior enforcement of any retail store that gets opened here. Our bylaw, I'm over my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for coming out again today and sharing your concerns. And I've listened to what everybody's had to say, and I have wholeheartedly taken a lot of thought into my decision making tonight. And so I say here today, whether we agree with it or not, that cannabis is legal, and I know this is something that we can grow, consume, and now legally sell. I too am not thrilled that the government has put the onus on the municipalities, but here we are at the 11th hour deciding not or to allow retail or not. It's also important that we recognize that my decision is solely about allowing retail and not about the morality of the use or non-use of cannabis. I did struggle with my decision, as it's very easy to get caught up in an emotional conclusion versus a factual conclusion. But rest assured, I have done my homework. I will not base my decision on any social media or online polls. They've been proven to be both skewed and unreliable sources. So what are my deciding factors? Safety, public health, and enforcement. Retail is here, and inevitably it will be all around us. Yes, some towns have opted out because of uncertainty. However, we do live in a world of change that's constantly evolving. And one of the main objectives of legalizing cannabis is to fight and eliminate illegal operations and reduce access to our youth. The Ministry of Finance released a letter stating, our government is continuing to build a retail system for cannabis sales that will help eliminate the illegal market and is safe and reliable, with rules that keep cannabis out of the hands of children and youth while keeping our roads safe. It would be naive for us to believe that opting out would reduce illegal activity. If youth really want cannabis, they can go download an app called Weed on Wheels, have it delivered to them within an hour. Or maybe they'll just go across the street and purchase it out of someone's coat pocket. Are we really going to hide our heads in the sand and simply ignore this is already happening in our backyard? Again, I understand there's uncertainty, but I am even more concerned with the easy access to fentanyl-laced cannabis. Even the City of Toronto's medical officer believes by opting out would increase harms associated with use. She said, "We don't want to see people being pushed into an illegal market where there is no regulation and absolutely no control. I think that's a greater harm to health." Now, I know there's a stigma around cannabis, and the first step is educating the public about the product and pushing out the illegal operators. And in addition to the extra funds our region and municipality would receive, it's important to acknowledge that the province is also committed to and publicized increasing the capacity of law enforcement to help detect drug impairment through driving through specialized training. Support local boards of health by providing a suite of tools and resources for enforcement of the Smoke-Free Ontario Act. Conduct an integrated public awareness campaign to communicate the rules and regulations for recreational cannabis and educate Ontarians about the health and safety measures in place to protect them. By choosing to limit access to this product is counterproductive to what the government is trying to achieve, which is protecting our youth and our public health and safety. We really need to take the bull by the horns by investing in protecting these factors to strengthen our enforcement, our public health and safety of a federally and provincially regulated legal product. And for that reason, I'm opting in.
Thank you, Councillor Gillen. Please. Thank you, Richard. Please. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank all of you for coming and sharing your opinions and thoughts and experiences this evening and through email. Your stories were very moving on both sides of the argument for me. Regardless of the decision that we make tonight, it's clear we live in a compassionate town, and it's a huge honor to serve you. It's by far one of the most difficult decisions that I've had to make in my 7 years as a counselor. I have 2 teenage children. It's quite personal for me. I've never smoked cannabis. I have no desire to smoke it, and I certainly, at my kids' age, don't want them to smoke it. When they reach the age that they legally can, it's entirely up to them if they want to. I have some significant issues with what's before us, what's been presented before us. I would have certainly preferred, if we had to go through this route, the LCBO model, and quite frankly, we can thank the current provincial Conservative government. Councillor Humphreys, I think, referred to the federal government, but it's the provincial Conservative government that changed that model, and you can thank them for that. Ontario, if I'm not mistaken, is the only province that pushed this responsibility down to the municipal level, and I'm extremely disappointed that they did that, and they basically made us do the dirty work, in a sense, in making this decision for our communities. I would have preferred greater control through our bylaws, and they removed that from us as well. It's certainly not the best scenario, but it is what we have. I wanted to stress that it's my understanding that the stores will be highly regulated, and you've heard it said more than once. As I understand it, up to $250,000 in penalties if they don't comply with the regulation. It's a very serious matter if the retail outlet does not comply with the regulations, particularly in protecting our youth. That is, to me, the regulatory body that regulates alcohol right now is guiding us through this process. And unless we don't like the way alcohol is regulated across the province, then we should also have a problem with this. But I assume most of us don't have a problem with that. That's not to say our children don't have access to alcohol. They certainly do. overall, my thoughts are that we live in a free society. It is a regulated, legal product. And how can I sit here and say no to having a legal, regulated product being sold at a retail store? I have difficulty with that. I wish I could have hung my hat on something. And I was hopeful that tonight somebody would have convinced me otherwise. And I would have been happy to move in a different direction. One thing that to me was quite powerful, we had I've been exposed to and asked the questions to police services, and I asked a pointed question. I said, if we were to have a retail outlet in the town of Aurora, will that increase crime? And the answer was no. And this is our police services telling me this. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the public, while it's an extremely difficult decision, I will be voting to opt in.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am also going to opt in, and I'll explain my...
Hold on, everyone, please. Please. Please, everyone. Up, or Richard.
Let them go. Let them go. Take a picture of it. Let them go.
Council, I'm going to ask for a recess. Recess, please. Recess. Let them clear out. Recess. Every Yeah, I've already seen it. Thank you. Yeah, I've already seen it.
So the intention will not, intention is good to
We're not deciding whether it's legal or not. We're deciding whether to have a store. It's a totally separate argument.
But if in Aurora, the black market is still there, and it's
Yeah, everyone, if we can just, we have a certain decorum in council. If everyone can just sit down, we can finish our meeting. We can have the vote. Each councillor can speak, and we can get this done with, and we can move on. We all are Aurorans, as was stated. We all respect each other's decisions, whether we agree with each other or not. That is what a democracy is. And so if we can continue, please, with the meeting, remember that's how a council works. We do not interact with the crowd. We deal with each member at the council table. So I will be calling this meeting back from recess, and we will continue with Councillor Gartner. Had the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would like to thank those of you who are still in our town hall chamber. I would like to thank you for staying and for your respect. And I can only imagine that it's very, very hard for you and very disappointing. And again, unfortunately, the provincial government has put us in this position. The past provincial government had the model of retail outlet, as Councillor Gallo said, the way we do alcohol. And in my opinion, that would have been the fairest and best way. Saying that, at present, the reality is that cannabis is being sold illegally in Aurora. In my opinion, the legal sale of a legal substance in a retail store is in the public's best interest. A properly regulated self-regime with quality control under the guidance of staff are significant to the health and safety of the public. So I will be voting, as I said, to opt in. There are a lot of gray areas. It's very difficult for us as a council to know. When we make our decisions, we hope they're the right decisions. We really try and make the right decisions for the community. And I am hoping sincerely that this is the right decision for all of you, even if you do not agree with it at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Councillor Kim, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I knew it was going to be a tight vote, but I'm actually quite shocked at that I'm the loner on this one. But I'm respectful of everyone's opinion. I know this was a tough choice. And I hope that the next 4 minutes and 40 seconds, I'll be able to try to win a couple of you over. You know, one of the myths is that if we opt out, we'll be losing out on provincial funding. You know, all of this money will be going towards enforcement, increased bylaw presence, education. So, you know, don't think for a sec, for those who believe that we're going to receive all this money from government tax revenues from marijuana, that we're going to have extra revenue to allocate to other programs, because that's not going to happen. You know, it's widely and commonly known that if you have more distribution, you're going to have more users. Okay? It's supply side economics. When you have deregulation, when you let the dam break and you have supply, there will be more demand. That's just fundamental economics. And so for anyone to say that having one or two, and sure, on the other side, make no mistake, we're not going to have, you know, cannabis stores in every plaza like a nail salon. That's not going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. Maybe 10 years, who knows? But we all know that's not. I don't foresee that happening. But the point is, the more distribution outlets there will be more usage. When you have, sure, if you're, 28, 30 years old and you're going to make a decision to consume cannabis, that's fine. sure, we can say that 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds will not be allowed in, but again, it's the law of diffusion. When you have more distribution, people are going to consume. And there, like every issue that we've encountered in council from last term to this term, there's about 30, 40, 50% of people who are sitting on the fence waiting to move over to the other side. You don't think that having a retail storefront, when people pass by, whether it be one location, 2 or 10, they're not going to look at these stores and say, it's front in mind. It's marketing, right? Just going to collect my thoughts. I didn't realize it was going to be such a kind of heart-wrenching discussion. And like a couple of other of my fellow councillors who've indicated, I'm very disappointed in the provincial government as well. First of all, like everything else seems to be downloading all the costs and the decisions to us and not equip us to strictly police it. But it doesn't mean that we're not necessarily putting, our heads to the ground and feigning ignorance to all this. I mean, essentially, again, it's the province, we're open for business. We're going to do this, we're open for business, and there's nothing you can do about it, and we're going to bully all the municipalities. Now, I recall, last month, Mayor Marakis announced a very courageous motion of Bill 66. We're going to fight Bill 66. We're not going to allow the government to, essentially they're saying, we're going to give you the power so you can open up your green space. So are they essentially not bullying us and helping us to, say we actually want you to open up the green space? And against all odds, we decided that we're going to go against that, regardless of the benefits. Last term as well, I recall there was another development, and then those in council said, we got to stick up for the principle. Some of us said, it's going to cost us $600,000, $800,000, $1 million in legal bills for a 2% chance of winning this. But, some of us said, no, it's about the principle. We have to fight for our residents. We have to fight for our principles. Are we not fighting for our principles in this issue here as well? All I'm hearing is we're going to lose out on provincial funding. What happened to the David versus the Goliath? So if we're going to talk about principles, let's be consistent with how some of us voted last term, or voted on 1 or 2 issues that we've already encountered this term. Don't let the province bully us and saying you're not going to get enough funding for this. I'll tell you what, if we opt out, there's going to be fewer issues that's going to require our resources anyway. So opting in and getting the funds is essentially going to be paying for all the more increase in usage and the subsequent issues that are going to develop from it.
Councillor Kim,
So I'll close with that. So I just hope that during those 5 minutes I'm able to convince a couple of you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Is there any other comments or questions? Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none, so call the vote. Use your tabulators, everyone. The motion carries 5-1. Councillors, we'll move forward. We have a confirming bylaw. Can I get someone to move the confirming bylaw? Moved by Councillor Gallo, seconded by Councillor Gartner. All those, we'll go by the tabulator. And that carries 5-1. And for adjournment, can I get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Gartner. This one we'll do by hand. All those in favor of adjournment? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.